Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Dallas Habitat's Virtual Advocacy Day. I'm Dave Crawford, CEO of Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity. We are so glad you've joined us here and appreciate you taking the time to learn more about how policies we will all be voting on this fall impact housing, racial equality, as well as more in our community. As we all know, 2020 has been a year like no other, with the health and economic impact of COVID-19 and a renewed focus on racial justice, highlighting many of the issues and inequities in our society, many tied to systemic housing issues and policies. Now is a time for us to use our voices and vote in our upcoming election. But before we do that, we wanted to gather to learn a little more about the policies that impact the work we do here at Dallas Habitat and around Dallas-Fort Worth, so that we can all make informed decisions this November. We have a great lineup of both local and national leaders ahead, and I'm looking forward to learning something new today. Thank you to our speakers, our staff, volunteers, board members, and the entire Habitat community for their attendance and support today as we all advocate for affordable housing and a better Dallas together. Now I would like to turn it over to our Habitat Vice President of Public Affairs, Tasha Heron-Bruff, to get today's event started. Tasha?
Thank you, Dave. Welcome, everybody, to this first virtual Advocacy Day. The way the world is now, we have to do things differently. It doesn't mean that we stop our work. It just means we figure out how to get things done. So that's why we're meeting in this format, and I'm so glad to see all of you. About a year ago, we embarked on a cost of home campaign, along with Habitat International and hundreds of other Habitat affiliates across the country. What do we want? We want to bring 10 million people closer to affordable home ownership and access to affordable home opportunities. And we want you to join us on that journey. We have partnered today with a great organization that feels that this is the right thing to do and this is the right time. I want to introduce you to the Government Affairs Director of the Metro Tex Association and today's sponsor. Welcome, Matthew Church.
Thank you, Tasha. I appreciate this opportunity to address all our fine folks watching on Facebook Live. The Metro Tex Association Realtors is a partner with Habitat for Humanity. We've been a long-time partner, and we look forward to continuing both our like-minded efforts and our policy initiatives, and just carrying on the very tremendous value-added work that Habitat does. So from our standpoint, it's an honor and a privilege to work with you guys and to continue to work with your organization.
So now we have a very special guest. We are honored to have Bernice Johnson, our Congresswoman. And you know, to have this woman who has been such a star in the world of politics, to stand behind Dallas Habitat, the city of Dallas, and her commitment to housing is phenomenal. This is a woman who won't stop, can't stop, and sees this time in our history as a time to fight, as a time to stand up, to be encouraged, and to get busy in fighting for change. I'd like to welcome Congresswoman Bernice Johnson.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Bernice Johnson. I represent the 3rd Congressional District of Texas, and I'd like to share with you my statement for this exciting new venture that you're beginning. So to the homeowners, volunteers, community partners, and everyone in attendance, I am delighted to join you on this first ever Dallas Habitat Advocacy Day. I'd like to discuss with you 3 areas that are critical to our success as advocates for housing in the Dallas area: registering to vote and the 2020 election landscape, racial justice and equity, and affordable housing and local policies. Now more than ever before in the history of our nation, it is critical that everyone both register to vote and then actually vote. In Texas, you can vote early. Everyone should help spread the word that the deadline to register to vote in Texas is October the 5th. I believe affordable housing is a racial justice and equity issue. It has been so since the beginning of this nation. This pandemic has brought to light the stark inequities in our society when it comes to access to health care and housing. No one is harder hit than our constituents struggling with homelessness and housing insecurity. As co-chair of the Congressional Homelessness Caucus, I am particularly concerned with the impact of loss of housing due to the economic turmoil in this pandemic. It is critical that we strive to expand homelessness prevention resources as part of our societal response to contain the coronavirus. In May, I, along with Representative Jared Hoffman and Alcee Hastings, introduced the COVID-19 Serving the Homeless by expanding the list of tenant-eligible residences, called the SHELTER Act. This bill will help individuals who are unsheltered during this pandemic by expanding the types of allowable units under Section 8 and a new disaster voucher program. It would also increase the funding for additional available Section 8 vouchers. Recently, the Centers of Disease Control and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services issued a national moratorium on most evictions for non-payment of rent. This is long overdue and badly needed and will provide essential protection to millions of renters. While our eviction moratorium during this pandemic is essential, it is a half measure that delays but not prevent evictions. We must invest in emergency rental assistance and homelessness prevention resources now so that individuals and families do not lose stable housing as soon as this eviction moratorium expires. I want to thank the Dallas Area Habitat for Humanities for allowing me to participate in the Day of Advocacy, and I look forward to many more years of partnership.
Thank you, Congresswoman Johnson. We're so happy to have you, and thank you for your participation in today. But I'm excited right now because we're going to have two great guests. We're going to bring back Matthew Church from the Metro Texas Association to join us, and also Chad West, who's the councilman for District 1. Matthew Church is, like I said before, is the government affairs director for the Metro Texas Association. Right before he joined Metro Tex, he was the government affairs director for the Greater Fort Worth Association of Realtors. And Council Member Chad West, as you know, he is the council person for District 1, but he's also the chairman of the Housing and Homelessness Solutions Committee. Councilman West, before he joined the council, served as on the Dallas City Planning Commission and a 20-year veteran in the United States Army. I'm always so impressed with that, Chad. I kind of always, talk to you about that because I'm fascinated about your move from the military into public service. We're so glad to have both of you gentlemen with us. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us and for the warm introduction, Tasha. I know when you're going to be here, it's going to be to talk about some cool stuff, and just like we did on our last video. And I love talking about housing, and I love it how Habitat's willing to dig in and talk about the hard issues. And I just want to say hello to everybody. I'm here in our COVID classroom. I got none of the kids aren't here today. They're actually have gone back to school, but we got a little makeshift grocery store and library behind me. So you guys are welcome to my house.
I see. You know, we're all, you know, at the opening, I said, this is a different time for us, but the work doesn't stop, you know, for all of us, the Metro Texas Association and you in city government, we still have to do work. And so I want to talk to you today about what's happening in housing and as it relates to voting. We're in the midst of the voting season. And this is a really important time. And we have people on because they want to hear from you, right? And so, you know, we don't always have housing at the top of the issue list when we talk about voting. We kind of have to fight to get housing to the top, but it's important. You know, I say that it's you know, really instrumental to the economic vitality of our city. So I want to ask you both, why is voting so important, and why is it so important to housing? Chad, you want to take that first?
I will absolutely take it first. Voting is important because voting determines who ends up in office, very simply put, right? And the philosophical beliefs of whoever ends up in office determines the policies you get. And so that's as basic as it gets, and that really is really what it boils down to. And that's why when you're looking at who you're going to vote for, you should look at what their policies are going to be. And if you're kind of not sure what to ask, you can reference some specific bills. I know Congresswoman Bernice Johnson mentioned the Shelter Act, which I think we might deep dive a little bit later on some of the bills, but I'll lay out a few. And if you find them to be useful for producing more affordable housing across the country like I do, you might want to ask your potential elected officials about those bills and if they would support them or not. So on a just nationwide, you know, when you're talking about national policies, we on the local level are we're very dependent on federal policies that subsidize affordable housing, because we can't do it on our own at the city level. At the city level, to build more affordable housing that way by allowing a little bit more density. And I know Matthew can probably speak to more of that as well, but allowing the construction industry to be a little bit more enabled is what we can do. But what we can't do is provide large amounts of subsidies or tax breaks without federal support. You know, elections matter. I'm not going to get partisan here, but, you know, following the elections of 1968 and 1980, there was a drastic reduction in federal support for affordable housing. And as we saw after those elections, they led to a large number of people that lost their homes and ended up being homeless. And so, you know, it's everything kind of is a system that works together, right? If you're already, you know, one step away from, you're barely making it in your job, you're trying to balance your life, and then you lose your job, all of a sudden you may not have a safety net. You know, I've always been very blessed to have a safety net. I've had a family, you know, I could go to if I needed it, and a support network, but not everybody has that. And our federal support for our affordable housing programs is so important for that reason.
Absolutely. Matthew, you know, I want to ask you from the view of the Metro Texas Association, which you all have a huge consistent contingency of realtors. What do you know, from that vantage point, I know you're just not satisfying the needs of the real estate community, but the city at large, you know, so tell me what are some of your thoughts about voting as it relates to Metro Tech's work in policy?
Well, thank you, Tasha. And Councilman West, you know, nailed it on the head. But I'll take a different tack with voting, because, you know, the councilman, one, thank you for your service. What voting really represents is skin in the game. And the one thing that makes us, that we all have in common, regardless of policy differences, life circumstances, economic circumstances, the one thing we all do or can do is vote. And it's one thing we share as both a mutual opportunity. And there are many places throughout the world today and throughout history that didn't have this opportunity.
That's right.
And you know, sometimes we take it for granted. And I think what voting really represents is all our differences are put aside, and when we cast a ballot, we're all the same, and we act and behave in a civilized manner, and it means a lot. So from a society standpoint, I think voting is very fundamental to us all pulling together. Go ahead.
No,
sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead, Matthew. Yes.
Well, so from a policy standpoint, the councilman, you know, well, from a Metro Tech standpoint, I think it's, you know, a realtor, right? Metro Tech Association of Realtors, we have approximately 23,000 members here locally, about 1.5 million across the nation. And what most people think of when they think of a realtor and or the Realtor Association is they think of a transaction, buying, selling homes. And what a lot of folks don't understand is the Realtor organization looks out for its members and its clients long after that transaction has already taken place. We advocate on issues like property taxes, affordable housing components. We, you know, development review processes, flood mitigation programs. It's not just, you know, buying and selling homes. We also have a large constituency of our membership who is in property management, who owns properties that they lease to these tenants. The very tenants that Congresswoman Bernice Johnson was referencing in that CDC order, many of our members have direct access and contact to them. So from a policy standpoint, the Realtor organization is broad, nationwide, and gets engaged both from a local, city, county, state, and federal level. And so when it comes to housing opportunity, housing affordability, and the protection of the private property rights is front and center on everything that we do.
And as it should be, right? Because when someone buys a house, the thought is that they're going to live there, stay in that community, become a part of that community, right? And so it's not just to be concerned with transactionally getting someone in a house, but how do we sustain them? How do we make sure that they're able to, you know, afford to stay and live in those communities? And how do we keep those communities vibrant and growing for the next generation of homeowners? I want to ask, you know, are there any policies right now? You know, Bernice Johnson did mention some, and you all were talking. What should homeowners be focusing on and watching out for right now that will matter to them? Chad, you can take it.
Sure, I can jump into that. It's a system that works together. On the federal level, you've got different pots of money. You got pots of money for homelessness. You've got pots of money for that we use at the municipal level, at the city level for rehabilitation. And you mentioned that, Tasha, like if you're an existing homeowner, it's way, way less expensive for us to help you fix up your home than for us to produce a new unit of affordable housing. So it's not only the right thing to do, because it is, but it's also in the city's best interest from a money standpoint to find programs that actually help individual homeowners, you know, fix up their roof or do things that are going to help with rent assistance or mortgage assistance where we can. So individual homeowners need to look both at the local level, like at the city of Dallas, for example, we have different types of programs for helping you stay in your home. And I think that the link to the comprehensive housing policy was posted, and some of those are listed in there, and I won't deep dive too much. On the federal level, some of the bills that are definitely worth looking at, and I wonder if we could maybe post these in the chat if someone from Habitat could help with that, is there are, let's see here, we've got a bill, it's a bipartisan bill, it's HR 3077, and this provides more low-income housing tax credits. And that's a long, fancy term. I call it LIHTC for short. Yeah. And LIHTC is the biggest tool we use. It basically it limits the amount of tax you have to pay, which lowers the cost for developers, which then allows developers to put in more affordable units into mixed income. And that's for apartments. So if we're getting more supply on the market of rental units, it's going to lower the demand on the market. It's going to keep the housing prices a little bit lower. It's like I say, the system all works together. That's HR 3077, something to look at. HR 5187 is sponsored by Maxine Waters. It is called the Housing is Infrastructure Bill. It is $100 billion with a B dollar bill for construction and support of more affordable housing. And that money, like I said, flows down into the cities and municipalities. And my understanding of that bill is that it can be used for single family construction or also multifamily construction. And then the third one I wanted to point out, and of course, Bernice Johnson mentioned the Shelter Act, but the Ending Homelessness Act is Bill HR 1856. And one of the key goals that resonates with me is providing 85,000 more permanent supportive housing units for homeless individuals. Our homeless population in the country is growing exponentially, and that's because we're not building enough affordable housing to keep up with demand. And so if you don't have enough supply, people are going to end up in bad situations. So these bills to me they're expensive, but they are what we need right now to prevent our problem getting worse in terms of more people experiencing homelessness. And I encourage you to ask your representatives about those bills and if they are supportive or not.
Well, I love that education that you're giving, and for all the people that are on, this is what we mean. You need to be educated about what is going on in government. We're talking about federal policies that trickle down to the local governments, right? And so it's important to know what tools are going to be available to you as a homeowner, right? So, before I let you all go, I really want to know, how do we help individuals advocate for housing, better housing, being a better Dallas where everyone can afford to live here? That's part of the problem, is Dallas is becoming so unaffordable. I think about my dad who came here many, many years ago because Dallas was such an affordable place to live, right? And so now Dallas is really struggling to be able to meet the needs of the people that live here. How do we advocate? And how can someone that's sitting here watching this today get involved? Matt, you want to take that first?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Councilman West. You actually stole all of my thunder on the policy items I was going to bring up. So I appreciate that. I think it honestly will take a realistic, introspective approach from both the community stakeholders and the elected officials. We use terminology like affordable housing. We use access to housing. We're going to take a comprehensive approach on what that actually means, because affordable housing means has a different definition to whomever you're speaking with.
That's right.
From a development side, it's the cost of putting product in the ground. From a homeowner's standpoint, it might be the ability to pay property taxes with the increasing home prices that are incurred. So it really takes a comprehensive approach. And most individuals who purchase their home, they make two big investments in their life: their home and their kids. And the understanding that when they get that property tax bill every year, that's a reflection of their investments, because the school district accounts for approximately 50 to 40% of your property tax bill. Cities, counties, and other taxing jurisdictions make up less than that, but it all goes into the sum total of your property taxes. And so we can't have this conversation without looking at property taxes first. And I know Councilman West and other city leaders and county leaders, and even our friends at the state and federal level, they have to make really hard decisions on how that money is going to be allocated, how that revenue comes in. And I believe the first best step is and from a realtor organization standpoint and partnering with organizations like Habitat, we need to educate homeowners, tenants on what it actually means to own a home. Then we can focus on the education and resources available to help get folks who are underserved, who are underhoused, into better situations. Because the most important thing when you make these investments and leading folks from poverty to wealth is generational wealth transfers. And the single greatest way of doing that is purchasing real estate.
That's right. Absolutely. Chad, I'll give you the closing remarks, and I will say, I love that point about education. As you know, Dallas Habitat is committed to continuing our promotion of, helping people to become, successful home buyers and, learning to make great choices. And so Chad, I'm going to give you the last few comments here. What would you say
Sure.
would be some of the things that we need to focus on when we're talking about advocating for housing?
Thank you for the opportunity again for being here, and it's good to always be see Matthew, and we're like minds in a lot of this stuff. I have 4 things that I think you could take away from this today. One is to dispel the myths of homelessness. Homelessness, I had these same misconceptions. When the mayor appointed me to chair housing and homelessness solutions, I was a little freaked out, to be honest, because I had never been involved in the homelessness world. I didn't know much about it. I didn't understand it. And the impression I had is that, I see a panhandler and I see this panhandler on the side of the street, and I'm like, okay, that's the typical representative of a homeless person. And I just don't understand why don't they just go get a job and instead of standing out here asking for money. And that was really my exposure to the world of homelessness. One of the myths, and by the way, I posted, I think Habitat's going to post a link to a Texas Observer article that just came out. Provides a great background on sort of the history of homelessness, especially in Texas. So please check it out if you can. But what I learned by touring the shelters, talking with stakeholders, is that the vast majority of people who are homeless, they're not the panhandlers you see. They're people who are in the shelters. A lot of them have mental illness. They have drug problems. Some of them don't. Some are just normal people that are hard, no problems, other than they have experienced a loss of a roof. And a good 70 to 80% are that I ran into and spoke with, especially during the COVID sheltering. They want to get back into housing. They want to get their lives back on track. And I think the others do too. They're just, some of them are in such bad positions right now. Along that line with the panhandlers, I can't say this enough. The average panhandler makes about $50 an hour. If you want to better enable people to get back on their feet, give money to shelters, give money to organizations like Habitat that provide affordable housing and promote it. Give it to the people who are actually providing the services that say, hey, we're going to have job opportunities for you. We're going to have the medical care for you. Giving it to a panhandler might feel good at the moment, but it's ultimately not going to move the ball along. 3, I run into this every day. I'm sure Matthew does too. Developers are not always the bad guy. The big bad greedy developer, we hear that all the time. And there are some out there that are, just in it for a buck, and that's okay. They are the ones who are providing us with affordable housing and mixed income housing. And we've got to get past this NIMBY, not in my backyard mentality in our cities, that we can't have affordable housing here. Oh, we need affordable housing, but I don't want it in my neighborhood. I don't want it near me. That is so prevalent in the city. If you watch council meetings when we talk about this stuff, it just oozes out. And we encourage, especially your local leaders, to get past that mentality and encourage your neighbors to kind of just understand to really get the affordable housing crisis under control. We've got to be willing to take more of that low-income housing into our neighborhoods in a thoughtful way where everyone's mixed together. For years and years, low-income housing was all pushed to West Dallas and South Dallas. And that doesn't do anyone any good. We help everybody, even the lowest among us. Everybody rises together in one ship. Right. And then lastly, the bills that I mentioned, when you're talking to your representatives that you're going to vote for, don't just ask them, what do you think about affordable housing? Because you're going to get a rote answer that is going to sound pretty good. Ask them, how are you going to vote on this bill? Or what do you like about this bill? What do you not like? Like dig into it a little bit. Read the bill first so you're a little more familiar with it, because I didn't give very much context. But dig into questions a little bit more than just saying, what is your opinion on affordable housing? Because we've got to really find out what they really believe. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Look, you guys are a wealth of information. I would have you back anytime. I love that. Educate yourselves. Ask the tough questions. We don't want just a stock answer. We want the answers to the tough questions, because this is serious. It impacts us all. It's everyone's problem. Housing is everyone's issue, right? Thank you also for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'm bringing on my friend, Lady Jade from K104. Hello, my friend.
Sasha, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Lady Jade is the real professional here in co-hosting. This is just something I'm doing on the side, but
oh my God, and Chad and Matthew gave some really great information. I'm over here taking notes and writing things down and everything. So no, amazing.
Yes. Well, you're the real host, and I am going to turn it over to you, because you went to the street and you asked people what matters to them. We're in election season, and you talk to people socially distanced, but you got feedback.
Definitely did. I mean, I think that one thing that our community wants to do is be heard during this election season. So yeah, I took it to the streets to find out what our community thinks about the election, what they want to see change, and what they want to see change in their community. And this is how I went.
All right, here we go.
Let's talk about the election. It's 2020, and coming up in November, we have a very important election. So you know what I decided to do? I decided to hit the streets. I want to know, what do people in our own community feel about their election? What's important to them? What policies do they want to see change? And what type of local changes do they want to see in their neighborhoods? Let's find out.
I'm Justin Rhodes, and I'm from Oak Cliff.
John Claiborne here. I'm from LA, but right now I'm here in Dallas.
My name is Tamisha, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm from Pleasant Grove.
What's the most important issue for you this election season?
The main issue for me is having a president that's a decent human being. And it's not even policy, because I think policy, you can change policy more in your own communities, and a lot of times local elections and things like that.
The most important issue for me this election season is Black lives, period. Like, I need to know from these candidates what's on your agenda specifically for Black people. We've been going through this song and dance the whole 200 years. Give us something.
Just making sure that we have a leader that can take action, that shows concern about the people, and especially African Americans in our Black community.
Why would you say voting is so important?
Voting is important because it's your voice, right? If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. If you're upset about something, if you disagree with something, if you have views about something, then you need to vote towards that.
Look at the last election, 2016. It came down to like a few electoral votes. And that's the key thing. We all learned last time, it wasn't about popular vote, it's the electoral. So we got to get in there, hit that button, make sure we vote.
Without a vote, we don't have a voice. You can't be heard on any level, well, it's local, city, countywide. A vote counts.
What would you say to somebody who is deciding not to vote?
I would tell them to vote, because you want to see a change, so you need to do something to take part of that change.
If you don't vote, then you should just keep your mouth shut and don't say anything. There's a lot of people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram complaining, but if you don't vote, then you can't complain.
If you're choosing not to vote, I don't want to hear you complain. I don't want you saying Black Lives Matter. I don't want you saying none of that, because you got the opportunity to change it by taking that hour out today to go vote.
How has COVID-19 influenced your vote this election?
I just feel like we need a new president. He didn't take the virus serious in the first place. And if the virus was deadly, why you not taking that serious, and that thousands and thousands of people in different families are going to be affected? That's not right at all.
I think it seems like it's influenced a lot of, you know, voter registration issues, whether it's mail-ins, etc. But I still will go out and vote.
My vote is more about getting the right people involved. I'm not satisfied at all with what's been going on with the COVID-19 handling as far as economy, getting the vaccines out. So I think if we vote, get the right president involved, we can get this COVID situation taken care of.
Tell me some of the changes that you want to see in your own community.
Homelessness, I need a decrease in that. We need housing for those that are misplaced or displaced. Employment is a big issue.
Some changes that I want to see made in my community, especially in Fort Worth, it's so divided. All the money is getting flooded into downtown area, and the rest of Fort Worth is being left alone.
I want my people to take more pride in our situation. And we can ask for all the systemic things to change, and we can protest, and we can do all that thing. But if we can take responsibility and accountability for some of our own wrongdoings, and some of the things that we can do to help ourselves, you know what I mean? I want to change our mindset first. I want to see us change. And that starts with leadership in our own community.
Well, there you have it. You don't have to take my word, take the word of your fellow citizens in your community. Now, I need for you to remember some very important dates. Coming up on October the 5th is the voter registration deadline. By midnight, you have to be registered to vote, okay? We need you to use your voice. So I don't care if you have a felony conviction. Do you know that if you have actually served your entire sentence, you can vote? There are over 18 million Americans right now with past convictions who can vote and use their voice. Also, early voting is October the 13th through the 30th. Please take advantage of that time. Cast your vote. 2020 is a huge election. If we want to see change, it's up to us. I'll see you at the polls. That video is a perfect segue into our next segment. We are going to be hearing from a voter registration and outreach coordinator for the Dallas County elections. I want to remind you guys of some very important statistics. The median age of the Dallas voter is actually 62, which is why, you guys, we are out here advocating to get younger people to vote. We have to get them out to the polls and get them registered. As of September the 1st, there are 1 million unregistered Texan voters, you guys. 75% or more of them are from communities of color. And also in Texas 2020 primary elections, the young adult turnout rate was only 7%. So these are the numbers that we're trying to get changed. So yes, I am so excited to have her on today. She is the voter registration and outreach coordinator for Dallas County elections. Please help me welcome Miss Esmeralda Garcia. Hi, Miss Garcia. How are you?
Thank you. Hello. Thank you for doing this. It's awesome.
Thank you for being here. We have a lot of information to cover in such a short amount of time, so we're going to jump right into it, okay?
Exactly.
So let's get into it. Who can register to vote?
If you are 17 years of age and 10 months, you can register to vote. You have to be a United States citizen, a resident of Dallas County, not a convicted felon. If you have been convicted, you should have already completed your sentences. That's pretty much it. Register to vote.
All right. So let's talk about how we register, because there's a lot of misconceptions like, do I have to go to a registration drive? Can I do it online? How does that work?
Yes, in Texas, you do have to fill out an application. So you can visit our website at dallascountyvotes.org, download your application, print it, and fill it out. It is necessary that we have a wet signature. There is a lot of organizations out there that mean well. They have you sign up online and tell you to print it, but they forget to mail it in. So remember that you do have to mail it in. It is important that we get that wet signature, that completed application in our office.
And Ms. Garcia, the point of when we have those drive up, when people can register and drive up, you know, everybody's trying to do that right now. It literally, even when you do it on your own, it literally takes 2 to 3 minutes.
Exactly.
So it's not time consuming, right?
No, not at all. Fill out the application. Sometimes we even have volunteer deputy registers out there helping you to register to vote. So make sure you fill out your application. There's applications at tax offices. You can pick one up from there as well. There's applications in the libraries. You can download it from our website, like I said, and also you can walk into our office and get registered to vote.
Very good. So let's talk about the different voting methods really quick. You have the absentee ballot by mail. There's been some confusion whether or not we're going to be able to vote by mail. So let's clear.
Yes, ballot by mail. It is an option that you can do. Right now, something really good about ballot by mail that you guys need to be aware of. Under a governor's emergency proclamation, voters can deliver their application in our office here. As soon as they get their ballot by mail, they can come and bring it if they don't trust the post office. But they can mail it back in through the post office as well. The last day to request the ballot by mail is October the 23rd, so make sure you fill out your application. And remember, you do have to be a registered voter before you fill out your ballot by mail application. So
who can vote by mail?
You have to be at least 65 years of age or older, disabled, out of the county during early voting and election day. And also, if you're confined in prison but with the right to vote, you can still request a ballot by mail.
Okay, so we just saw in the earlier video, the early voting is October the 13th through the 30th, correct?
Yes, ma'am. October 13th through the 30th is early voting. We have 60 locations available for you guys to get out and vote and exercise your right to vote. One of our newest one is the American Airlines Center. So if y'all live close by there, y'all can vote in there as well during early voting. The schedule is very easy, 7 a.m. till 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday. And then on Sundays, 1 till 6. So you have a lot of time to go and vote early. We strongly recommend it. They can vote at any one of the locations.
So when you're early voting, you can stop by anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's in your neighborhood or.
It does not matter. No, you can live in Garland, work in Mesquite, or and go visit your friends in Dallas. Any one of the locations that is closest to where you're going to be, you can take that opportunity, get out of your car, and go vote.
And there's so much information, but I have to ask you this before we wrap up. Last but not least, what do I need to take with me when I go vote?
It is required in the state of Texas that you present an acceptable method of photo ID. You can take your driver's license, your photo ID, your Department of Public Safety photo ID, your passport, your certificate of naturalization, or if you're in the military, you can take one of those IDs. If you don't have one of those IDs and have never been issued one, you can, there's additional options. I ask that you please look at our website in case you do need to go and see that list.
Okay, perfect. You're a wealth of information, and we definitely appreciate you coming on today. There's so much we can talk about.
There's so much.
So one more time, if you can give us the website, because I'm sure people have many more questions.
Okay, DallasCountyVotes.org. That is our website. Our phone number is 469-627-8683.
Perfect. Ms. Garcia, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for everything that you're doing for our community and getting the word out and spreading the message about the importance of our election and voting.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
On the cutoff date of Monday, October the 5th, we're going to be here till midnight waiting for you guys to come and get registered. So if y'all can help spread the word on that, we will be here. We're going to have a drive-through. People can come and drop off their applications. I'm going to be waiting on the volunteer deputy registers, bringing in their applications as well, all the way till midnight. So don't forget that. We are doing that benefit for our community. So for the procrastinators that wait till the last minute, they can come in, register to vote, and also update their information. That is very important for them to do that if they have moved or gotten married.
Okay, I have to ask you one more question that just came in the chat from Rosalind. It said, can homeless people vote?
Yes, they can register to vote. They definitely can. Homeless people, a lot of our volunteer deputy registers do target that crowd. They can, under the address, they can put where do they reside, like let's say 635 in Midway, but they do have to have a mailing address to where we're going to be able to send them their certificate and to know what area to include them in. So yes, they can register to vote and vote.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ms. Garcia, for your time and for the information. And again, we have put the information in the chat that you actually mentioned today. So we're going to make sure that we take care of everybody and get them the information that they need. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, you guys, I am so excited to introduce to you our next panelist, where we're going to be discussing racial justice and equity. Such a heavy topic, but a very important topic today. So I am honored first to introduce you to Mr. Professor Clarence Glover. Professor Glover is presently working as a consultant with the Dallas Independent School District as president and CEO of Sankofa Education Services, an African-American education consulting and training agency.
He also worked 15 years for SMU as Director of Intercultural Education and Minority Student Affairs, Coordinator of African American Student Services, and was an adjunct professor of African American Studies. Professor Glover, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be with you.
Thank you. And also on our panel today, we have Pastor Bryan Carter, who serves as the senior pastor of the 9,000 member Concord Church in Dallas. He leads Harmony CDC, an organization committed to improving the community of Southern Dallas through building stronger families and economic development. He also leads the African American Pastors Coalition, a fellowship of over 60 churches committed to serving and addressing the key needs in the Dallas community. Pastor Carter, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I do believe that we can literally have a 4-hour discussion on this topic today. So we're going to jump right into it. Professor Glover, I'm going to start with you. I want to talk about this year, the racial, we know that COVID-19 has definitely impacted brown and Black communities disproportionately, right? So let's talk about that. We have the racial inequity that's been highlighted through COVID-19 and the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement. Can you tell us what the experience has been like for you and what has kind of moved you the most in all of this?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I hear the word racial inequity is being used quite a bit. I like to liberate the language because we're not different races of people. We're one human race. And I believe that's one of the main problems in our society today. And that we're talking about human equity and not racial equity. So that we began to, at that point, I've been involved in the protests to the point that I can. I am a Jim Crow survivor. And that means that I lived during legal segregation in this country as sort of as a child with my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. And I believe that those of us who lived during this time who have been limited because of COVID-19, we need to find avenues like we're doing today to speak to the issues that we're dealing with, because they're not new issues. They've been with us for since 1619 in this country. So we need to be able to bring our voices to these issues and begin to help the younger generation. I do understand that there's the movement Dominic Alexander called the Next Generation Movement, of course. But I like to put that in context. After Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement, my generation was actually next generation after the Civil Rights Movement. But what happened is that we did not connect with the community in terms of issues at that time. So we fell into the illusion of inclusion. And you might say we fell asleep on the job. And then many of the things that had been silent, had been undercover, were not detected. But we must understand that as society went on, we began to see the movement of the white majority becoming the minority, and now we're seeing a backlash to that issue along with COVID-19. Yes. So when we start talking about issues of race, what we call racial, if you will, racism and systemic racism, we need to have more voices involved. I've been out there in the community with the young people lately, having worked with civil rights issues in the past, and I believe that there needs to be the presence of more voices. There needs to be what I call moral voices, voices that are clear, like Dr. King, like Fannie Lou Hamer, like people that were clear voices, clear, concise voices. We must also understand the difference between protest and process. Not only do we protest, but we must engage in the process of change. So I believe that those things can be shared from the older generation to the younger generation so that we're not starting from the starting line again.
I love that. Professor Glover, look, I was going to ask Pastor Carter a message, but I almost need to call you Pastor Glover because you preach.
I am a pastor.
Oh, amen. Okay. Yeah. I can tell. See, okay. Well, that was great information. And I definitely appreciate the education as far as using the terminology of human equity. And so it's all about growth. So thank you so much for sharing that. You brought up moral voices. So Pastor Carter, I do want to ask you about that. We do need more voices. We are trying our best to use our voice, but we are also encouraging allyship. So how can we and how can people become better allies for the Black community?
Thanks again for having me, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you, Professor Glover, as well. I think it's important. I think one of the lessons we learn from previous generations is that we never can really accomplish this on our own. We didn't get here on our own, and so we can't at the same time liberate our own selves without the assistance and help of others. And so allies are incredibly important. We need our white brothers and sisters to engage in this. And there's several things they can do. I think, first of all, they have to have humility, be willing to listen, be willing to hear us out. I was having a conversation yesterday, and the person just, if it takes that much for me to help you to understand, you may not be ready for this kind of work. You got to have a level of humility to understand the story, to understand the journey and the suffering that Black people and people of color have gone through for such a long time. So you got to have humility, but then you got to have proximity. You got to get close to it. You know, you got to be willing to enter in, to walk with us, to protest with us, but also to help us in this process. And then you got to be willing to work. You got to be willing to use your influence. Allies are essential to what we're trying to do, because allies sometimes are in places we're not. There's a project happening in Southern Dallas at Redbird Mall by a gentleman named Peter Brodsky in our city. And Peter has been a real ally, not because he came in just to do something, but he listened and he heard and he engaged and he spent time. And that's what allies do. It's incredibly important. We need each other to make this happen, but you got to come in with humility and willing to work and listen so that we can make our deal with these inequities that have been here for so long.
Love that. Love that. Ooh, great information. Okay, Dr. Glover, Professor Glover, I do want to ask you this. We're here for Habitat for Humanity today, who advocates for fair housing, education. How do you believe housing impacts human equity, racial equity, and also voting?
All in so many ways. Housing is a necessary, essential for us, for life. We have to have the ability to live and to have a safe space to be in. The fact that African people in this country were the primary builders of shelters in America. We were brought here to build this country. We built the houses that the Europeans lived in, if you will, but we were restricted to shanty and literally small. I lived in an area, plantation area, so I know of the homes we lived in that were not painted, that had paper on the newspaper on the wall. And these are the same individuals who were building the plantation houses, if you will. So we must understand that fair housing is an essential issue, as well as infrastructure for those housing, plumbing, etc., water, all those things that are necessary that we're even dealing with now in some communities. I like to suggest that when we look at this issue, as Pastor Carter stated, our allies, how do we get people to work with us to get fair housing? I like to submit, I just did a Zoom with Texas A&M this morning. And for me, as a pastor as well, I offered to them the concept of Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, saving the white church, which is in saving white America. So if we look at allies, as we look at abolitionists in the past, the white community must be about the business of liberating itself, not simply looking at us as being a community to be helped, if you will. Because as they work on their issues, as they look at working on the issues of economic parity, how do we share economics? How do we share the wealth so that more people can have wealth to buy homes? How do we have opportunity and jobs? That's a major issue. So that if we're able to help them understand that they must do their work in terms of redistributing the pie, if you will, gotcha. So that our communities will have access to more of the pie, be it property ownership, because generational wealth through property ownership is the way you began having wealth. But this country was built on the fact that African people were never to have property, never to have homes. So this is a very critical issue. We're talking about the very soul of this country and the very concept of which it's built.
Wow. Okay. Look, I told you, I think we can do this panel with just the two of you for the next 4 hours. There's so much great information that you all are sharing today, and we definitely appreciate it. Pastor Carter, I do want to ask you, in lieu of what we just heard with the Breonna Taylor case, you can't not mention that, the officer only being charged with wanton endangerment. So many opinions about it. We can mention George Floyd, or Tatiana Jefferson. We can go into both of John. I mean, look, the list goes on and on. As a faith leader, there are a lot of people feeling helpless and hopeless in 2020, COVID-19 also affecting that. Just change and just the climate of the world nowadays. What advice do you have for those here today struggling to cope?
Yeah, I would start with just saying it's okay to not be okay. I think so many times we try to tell people, suck it up, don't worry about that, keep moving forward. I think we got to grieve. We can never get to where we need to be until we own and accept and grieve about what we're feeling. Whether it's the George Floyd, whether it's Breonna Taylor, the racial trauma that so many have suffered is real and has to be owned. And so it starts there. The impact that some of us have faced through this pandemic, the impact of sustained racism and justice issues, lack of and injustice issues impact us. So we got to start there by saying, I'm tired, or I'm frustrated, or I'm disappointed, or I'm angry. But I think after it starts there, I think it is this holy discontent that then ought to call us to realize we all can make a difference. I mean, we all, our ancestors went through so much more, and we have to continue this race. And so I think we got to encourage each other to say, listen, what can I do about my area? I know I can vote. That's one thing I can do. I know I can take the census, because if I don't take the census, that impacts the economic opportunities that are coming into my community. So I can take a census, I can vote. I know I can try to build up my own community, my own neighborhood as best I can. I know I can get informed on the issues that are happening in my city so I can be engaged in that space. All of us have a voice. All of us have a vote. And I think we got to encourage each other. Yes, we're disappointed, we're brokenhearted, we're frustrated. It's been a long journey, but it's too soon to quit. We still have work that we all can do, that we all can impact and build on the work of our ancestors that have helped us to get to this point.
Amen. All right, I want to thank a couple of people that are chiming in the chat, basically thanking you all for the information you shared. Bill Hefcock, thank you so much for your comments. Shanika Turner, thank you so much for your encouragement. This has been a lot of great information. I have tons more questions. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so I do want to do this. Professor Glover and Pastor Carter, everybody's watching right now. Give us one takeaway. What is the most important takeaway that you can think of to share with our viewing audience today? And I'll start with you, Professor Glover.
Well, I'm an educator as well. I use visual. And I have a new movement that I'm starting. And it's called Cotton Picking Freedom. And if you can see, I have a cotton here. I do pick cotton. And I use that phrase because that's a matter of understanding land, resources, property. And so we'll be launching a movement called Cotton Picking Freedom, so that a new generation will understand, first of all, that there's nothing wrong with the land, there's nothing wrong with the cotton, there's nothing wrong with working hard, there's something wrong with not getting paid for working hard. So therefore, we must establish a work ethic and a value system. And as we say in the Sankofa principle, to reach back to our past, to our elders, and to our ancestors, as Pastor Carter said, because we have a gap today between elders and younger generation. We must build a bridge. I'm 64, but there's information that my grandfather, my father and mother and others share with me. Once I'm gone, we have a major gap. My generation is gone, we have a major gap in terms of the African-American community. So I encourage you to join us with that effort. You can contact me at Clarence Glover Jr. at AOL.com. We'd love to engage you. Our Sankofa Education Services, and I'm also pastor of First African Freedom Church. Thank you.
That's perfect. Clarence Glover Jr. at AOL.com is your contact information, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
So much. I appreciate it. Pastor Carter, take away.
I would just tell you to stay engaged. Listen, Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity is a great partner in the city. If you know someone that wants to get a home, you want to learn about home ownership, they do a phenomenal job of helping you to get into it and get started in this journey. So stay involved with Habitat for Humanity, learn their resources, learn how to get a home, take the financial education classes, help you or someone you know step into home ownership. I would stay connected with Habitat for Humanity. It's a great organization to help you begin your journey into home ownership, or to help someone you know or love to begin their journey into home ownership, because home ownership changes so much. Education, mental health, physical health, the generational wealth, it's a big move. So stay connected to Habitat.
I just want to thank you both for your time today. I don't think sometimes we understand the impact that we can make in such a short amount of time. I want to bring up Lenitra, who said, this call has been so inspiring, educational, and informative. I'm so glad I was able to join. Thank you to everybody who's been here today. Thank you to Professor Glover, Pastor Carter. Again, continue to use your voices. It is an honor to share the screen with you both today. You both are so inspiring to our community. So I encourage you also, keep going. We need you. We definitely need you, especially in these times. So thank you both so much for taking your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. What amazing information. Thank you also to Demetria, who has logged on today. She said, thank you for lifting up those who were formerly convicted felons. Thank you. Now, Tasha, I'm going to bring you on in 2 seconds. I believe we're going to play a really quick video, and then I want you to close us out if you don't mind. But one of our grassroots advocates for Habitat for Humanity, which you introduced me to, is young professionals. A lot of people may not know what the hype is all about, HYP. So we're going to show you.
Tell them.
Yep, take a look.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I have a really quick question for you. Have you ever thought to yourself, you know, I'm young, I'm professional, but I could be doing more for my community? Well, I have the perfect opportunity for you. It's called HYPE, H-Y-P, and it's Habitat Young Professionals. And it's a group of grassroots volunteers who come together to basically advocate for the mission of Habitat for Humanity. So, you know, one thing that's very important is affordable housing. So what HYPE does is they come together to figure out ways to, you know, get with those policymakers to create change in their community. How can we get others to come together to, you know, help Habitat for Humanity, not only donating their time, but their resources and their finances? You guys, if our community is going to change, it's up to us, and you have that opportunity. So I definitely encourage everybody, if you're a young professional and you want to be a part of HYPE, I encourage you right now to log on to DallasAreaHabitat.org. Click on the advocacy link and you will see something right there that says HYP, HYPE, Habitat Young Professionals. We are so looking forward to you joining our effort, and let's create the change. The saying goes, we have to be the change that we want to see.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I am Lady Jade. Now, I am hanging out today at Habitat for Humanity, but there's an organization that I heard about, and I had to get the inside scoop because I am so curious to know what the hype is all about, right? Y'all like how I did that, right?
That was good.
Well, the organization is actually called HYPE, H-Y-P. It stands for Habitat Young Professionals, and I have the secretary and the treasurer here today. Please introduce yourselves.
My name is Matthew Bryan.
My name is Porfirio Coronado.
Okay. Y'all gotta tell me what the hype is all about. No, I have been hearing so much about hype. So let's talk about the mission and exactly what hype is.
So you know what, Habitat Young Professionals is actually a group of creative, well-minded people that are actually connecting and just basically creating awareness for Habitat's mission.
Okay.
Where Habitat's mission is basically to affordable housing where everyone has a decent place to live.
Okay. So what would you say is different about hype than other young professional groups?
I would actually say it's because my profession is in healthcare. So,
okay.
You know, when I joined the organization, I was like, how do I tie home ownership into healthcare?
Sure.
So, but I mean, you need a home.
Yeah.
Every young professional organization starts at home.
Sure.
So, what better way for HYPE to, you know, build on and be that foundation to other young professional organizations?
Perfect.
It's encompassing.
Yeah.
So why not start here?
And I would add to what Bryan is saying, because you know, in our mission with us is basically we are providing affordable homeownership for families, right? So with us being able to Habitat Young Professionals, we are able to see that seed, you know, where we planted that, and then we see that seed grow. So by us giving back to the community, we actually see it grow.
Okay, nice. Okay, so let's say I decided to join HYPE, right? And I actually might. You know, I've been thinking about it. That's why I'm doing my research here today.
We're ready.
Tell me what type of things you guys participate? What type of activities? What exactly do you do? And I'm saying, you know, putting your feet on the ground. Tell us about that.
Okay, so we're young professionals, so, you know, we don't do things kind of like the antiquated way of, you know, just sitting in a boardroom and talking about what we're going to do. We actually want our members to get out into the communities and actually do things. So volunteering, you know, we will network, we'll go do social events. We had one event where we did yoga with the members, you know, and just kind of raise money for the organization that way.
Okay.
So doing different things that are, you know, appealing to young professionals.
Okay.
Like we were saying, there's our overall goal is to advocate for affordable housing. So whatever event we do, we are always advocating for affordable housing to bring it back to the mission. You know, like Matthew mentioned, is like we're always looking at ways to engage members. You know, either by doing yoga, like he mentioned, we might have a happy hour. But all those items we actually
just got a lot of signups there.
But yeah, so we do happy hours where we actually just talk about affordable housing. You know, so a lot of times we'll bring speakers and discuss about what affordable housing is in the city of Dallas. Because as you know, the affordable housing in the city of Dallas is actually very little. You know, there's not a lot of affordable homes in the city of Dallas. So for anyone to afford an affordable house, you know, it's kind of difficult. Us trying to advocate for that and bringing awareness in the community, it's actually what we're doing.
So basically, you guys have just linked up with Habitat for Humanity, created this organization full of young professionals, and you get the word out about all the amazing things that Habitat for Humanity is doing.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. See?
Because it's going to be us.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're starting to buy homes.
Exactly. So why would you not want to join HYPE? Okay, so let's say somebody wants to join HYPE, Habitat Young Professionals. How do they do that? Is there a website?
Yes, so if anyone's interested in joining our Habitat Young Professionals, they will have to visit Dallas Area Habitat's website, which is www.dallasareahabitat.org. In there you will see the Advocacy tab, and there you will see Habitat Young Professionals.
Okay, and then one last question, because there's a lot of people that would love to be a part of this, but they're afraid that they may not have enough time. What are the time obligations? That's a really good question, because you know, we're all working, we're trying to make life happen right now. Life is really difficult, and so our time is limited.
Right. So we take that into account as being, you know, on the executive board. We definitely know what the value of time is, and so we just kind of tell the members, you know, the best that you can. You know, we offer so many different things to do, and then where it may be an hour, 2 hours, you know, a month or something like that. You know, just whatever fits your schedule. Because as young professionals, you know, we're grinding right now.
Yeah.
So
we're all working.
Yeah.
So you know, whatever you can do, and so, you know, some members even use it as a stress reliever, just to get out and be out, away from the everyday grind.
Nice. Well, I will say this, I got a chance to hang out with these guys today. They're really fun, so I can imagine as they're advocating for affordable housing, they make it fun, and you know, you're very welcoming, and I'm sure a lot of people definitely appreciate that. So do not be afraid to join HYPE, HYP, Habitat Young Professionals. Make sure you log on, join. I have so many people say, I want to give back. This is a perfect way as a young professional to give back to our community, and you feel so fulfilled afterwards, right?
Exactly. Like I said, we see that seed grow into, once we are able to see a house being built, that we actually advocate for it. You know, so we see that to fruition.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Give us that website one more time.
www.dallasareahabitat.org. Advocacy tab, Habitat Young Professionals.
Bam. There you go. All right. Well, we will be joining. Hurry up. Click on the tab right now. You guys, I got to bring Tasha back on, because Tasha, I have to personally thank you. You all do not have to do these things, right? You can just go out and be an advocate for housing, and then that's pretty much it. But y'all are always making sure that we're educated. You're getting the information out there. You're allowing people's voices to be heard. I cannot thank you enough. I'm such a huge fan of Dallas Habitat for Humanity. So y'all know whenever you call, I'm here. And Tasha's a personal friend of mine, so I know where her heart is with this, and her heart is for our community. So
yes.
I wanted to remind everybody that the information for HYPE is in our chat as well. Can you give us some closing words today, Tasha?
Yes, first I want to thank you, Jade. You're always great, spot on. You bring that energy to our event. And what you said is so important. You know, it's not just enough for us to build a house, right? You know, anybody can go out there and do that and build shelter. But what we're trying to do is start a movement, right? You know, there's so much is happening in the world, and we just need to get people to act, and we need to start with education and hoping that we inspire somebody to make changes in their own community. But I want to thank you. You're amazing. You're a wonderful advocate for this organization, and look forward to working with you more in the future on many things, right? Yes, thank you, my friend.
Yes, absolutely. So is there one thing you want to share with the audience before you leave as well?
It is. And you're going to force me? Yeah. Listen, I've been struggling with this, right? Because I was thinking, is this the right time to even be talking about this? But I have worked with this phenomenal organization for almost 11 years. It has taught me probably more about myself than I've probably put into this organization. And, I've worked alongside talented staff, dedicated volunteers, generous donors, a board who loves this organization and supports it and stands with it, and the families and the communities that are dedicated and committed to improving the life of their families. They are the heroes of our organization. But I'm moving on to, I am closing my chapter with Dallas Habitat. Yes, this chapter in this row, and it's bittersweet, but I'm moving on to another journey that will even help me, help others more on even a bigger platform. And I hope to still leverage my partnership with you and all of the folks at Habitat to make Dallas and help create a better place for everyone, not just for some people, but for all people. Because this is, Jade, this has been a year. My son even said, let's just throw the year away. We can't throw the year away, right? We should be inspired. It should create opportunity for us to act and for us to get together and to lead and to serve. This is the time. The time is now for change. And what we want you to do is go out and vote, impact your right, your fundamental right to use your voice to make change. Do it because it is your right and we need to hear from you. And so I want to thank Dallas Habitat for all that you've done for over 30 years in over 25 communities. Thank you so much to your contribution to making this city better. And I am going to still be cheering for the sidelines for Habitat. Thank you, Jade, once again for all that you do. And this has been fantastic.
Tasha, you're amazing. Everything you do is amazing. And we know, like you said, you're still going to be an advocate for Habitat for Humanity because you believe
Absolutely.
in change.
Yes.
And we wish you the best of luck in your new venture. And
thank you, my friend.
What God will do is he will move us around because we need a little bit more representation over here. And
we do.
Here and it like we think it's just kids when we talk about it takes a village. It takes a village as adults for us to all come to make change in our community. So
that's right.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Dallas Area Habitat for Humanity, for all you do. Everybody is in the chat saying, good luck, Tasha. We love you,
Thank you.
Everybody's thanking Habitat for today. This has absolutely been amazing. So I will see you guys next time as we continue these virtual advocacy days and talking about the important issues. And Tasha, we'll see you around. She'll be back on one of these webinars.
I'm sure. Thank you.
Everybody have a great afternoon. Make sure you're registered to vote and go vote. All right. I'll see you at the
Go vote.